What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another... Where's my coffee? Here we go. Yeah. Welcome to another Coffee with Kensou. And today I'd like to talk about, it's kind of like two topics in a sense. Fear of failure in fighting games and limit testing. They kind of stem off of each other, and instead of making a single video just about limit testing, figured I would just combine these two topics because I think that they go hand in hand. So let's talk about fear of failure and limit testing. So fear of failure, right? More often than not, I tend to get a lot of questions about how to overcome certain things in fighting games. You know, what made you make that decision? You know, why would you do that? You know, there's always a lot of those things, right? Especially when you're playing or like you're asking questions. You know, there's always these questions that like arise. You know, why would you do that? Or, you know, why would you take that risk or something like that, right? So a lot of the times when I get asked that question, I just tend to just say I'm just testing to see what works, right? Especially in a situation where like I don't really know a matchup, or like I don't really understand something, I'll just, you know, take a chance, you know. So what does this entail, right? What am I getting at with this, right? Basically, what I'm getting at here is you cannot be afraid to test things out in casuals, right? A lot of people fear losing, right? They're afraid of their win-loss ratios like being skewed, so they want, you know, at least people to like make different accounts because they want to have like this high win ratio. You know, it's like there's like a slew of things. There's like a slew of things in which people just like look at and just like, well, I don't want like my KDA to be bad. I don't want my win-loss ratio to be bad. You know, I want to be high rank. You know, there's all kinds of like things that like cloud your judgment from, you know, allowing you to try to take a risk or allow you to try to learn something mid-match, right? And I think that's something that hinders a lot of people in fighting games because they're afraid to, I guess now this kind of stems into limit testing. And again, these go hand in hand, right? So you got to limit test sometimes. You got to see what works and what doesn't. You know, sometimes it's okay to like press your luck and kind of see what would happen if maybe you pressed a button, or maybe if you did a reversal, be it reversal super, reversal uppercut. You know, what if you did dead angle or alpha counter, you know, guard cancel, what have you, right? Like backdash, like you have so many different options, right? Why wouldn't you want to test yourself out and see what you can come up with, right? Especially if like you're not familiar with a matchup or you're just playing a very intense match, right? Now, this is kind of pertaining to casuals, and I'll kind of talk about tournament also, right? But when you're playing like a long set with somebody, right, in a long session online or whatever, like there's nothing to be afraid of in terms of trying stuff out. Like you should not be afraid to like take a chance or like test and see what the, you know, just test the waters. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you don't always have to take it the safe route, right? Because in casuals, now's the time for you to test things out, see what works, see what doesn't. And like you can start making better judgment calls in your matchups against said character or maybe even said player because you have that information now, right? I would say one of the biggest things in fighting games is having a lot of information, not necessarily just on your opponent, but more so in the matchup, right? Because the more you know information you know about the matchup, the better it is for you to make better judgment calls, right? Better for you to just, I don't know, you just make better decisions across the board. Like you'll know like what works and what doesn't work in this matchup. I'm outright encouraging you guys to just, you know, don't treat every match like it's top 8, grand finals, you know, getting out of pools. You know, you should, you know, this also comes with you setting your goals, right? Like you should be taking the time out to work on everything and anything that you can when you're practicing. You know, it doesn't matter if you have like 30 minutes to an hour to yourself in order to practice or play, right? Test things out. Do not be afraid. Like there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I know sometimes people can watch matches and be like, man, someone did something stupid risky, like some top player in some casual online set you see from one of these people who upload these matches, and you see them take this big risk and you're like, man, that was risky. I don't know why he would do that. It's like, well, you know, it's casuals, you know, why not? See, you know, that's also kind of a part of having fun. Not necessarily just trolling per se, right? But just, you know, having fun and just seeing what works, you know. And again, coming back to limit testing, you'll never know your limits as a player if you play too safe, right? I'll tell you from experience, you know, at my time coming up in fighting games, I tend to always play low HP characters because they tend to have a lot of options that I like, right? And in playing a lot of low HP characters, you learn to like play safe, but you also know how to play risky at points too, right? And I mean, it doesn't matter what characters you play or what kind of characters you play. Like learning how to, you know, balance out your risk reward and limit testing is important, right? Obviously with a low HP character, you don't want to test your luck too much, you know, given the situations, but that also comes with experience and like kind of like not having any fear and like having a lot of experience and knowing that like these, you know, I guess essentially I'm kind of stumbling on my words here, but essentially it's like match flow. Match flow comes into play also with limit testing and, you know, this fear of failure thing. But, you know, just going back to it, just do not be afraid, people. Like just don't. It is not worth it to spend a lot of time in any genre of game, you know, even though I'm specifically talking about fighting games, but any genre of games, you know, even me, like right now I'm playing a lot of Apex, right? And there are times where I think sometimes I play too safe or maybe too passive and that gets me killed, you know? And it's the same with fighting games, you know? You don't want to just be afraid all the time to like take a risk, you know, just because you have like a life lead or, you know, something, or something's going all right in your favor, or and you're too afraid, you know? Because sometimes, right, I'll give you an example. Sometimes people will get like a life lead, right, in matches, and then they hold on to it too hard and they play too safe, or they don't put things in the right way because they're so overexcited that they have the life lead, right? Especially if like, you know, let's say there's 25 seconds on the clock, they have half-life, their opponent has maybe like, I don't know, 10 to 15%, and they feel because they have the timer advantage, you know, and maybe the positional advantage, for example, they may think that that's the upper hand. And in some cases, it's not really like the case, you know, because you end up playing too safe, because you're afraid to take that risk and you feel outright. Because generally speaking, right, more often than not, you could see it as like the person who has the life lead essentially is winning, but that's not always the case. Sometimes people who don't have the life lead and who are behind in HP, they might have other advantages, right? Let's say it's in reverse, right? Let's say they have the positional advantage, they have the meter advantage, where the guy who does not have, you know, those things, they just have the life lead and like the clock. Now, having the clock is huge, but 25 seconds on the clock in any fighting game, that's enough time to do work, you guys. Trust me, take it from me. Like that is more than enough time to make something happen, because, you know, a lot of times when you don't have HP, at that point, then the tables are flipped, right? Now you gotta take the risk. Now you can't have that fear of failure. Now it's go time. You don't really have a choice. So you gotta see where I'm coming from, right? It doesn't matter, even if you have that life lead. You know, it's that fear of, I don't want to take any risk anymore. I've done what I have to do. Now I can just chill. But like, it's never that easy, because sometimes people will throw things in your way that you just weren't expecting. And that fear of failure, once again, despite having advantage, turned into a complete disadvantage because you were so fixated on, like, you know, the life bar and the clock, not thinking about your meter, your positional advantage, you know, your position on the screen, you know, where you're at, you know, prior to your advantage. Like, there's so many things that come into play. So like, at the end of the day, I just want you guys to know, you know, limit test yourself. Do not be afraid. You know, don't worry about win-loss ratios when you're playing. And I'm going to keep, you know, reiterating this. Do not care about that. What's more important is you having that proficiency in tournament. You know, and I'll briefly touch on tournament. There are times where you cannot have that fear of failure at that point either. And it just stems right back to what I just said about having a life lead versus not, you know. And yes, tournament play versus casual play is different. But again, having the information from casual play to take it into tournament play, to know when to limit test, when not to limit test, when to play safe, when not to play safe, that helps you grow as a player, that helps you make better decisions, the whole nine. Like, it all just comes full circle. So it makes you a better tournament player overall, and, you know, just makes you the best player that you can be, because you're able to, you know, you're not afraid, you know. And trust me, it takes time. It definitely is something that takes time, because I know that, like, a lot of people feel like, I swear to you, man, I can't stress it enough, and I keep coming back to this, but win-loss ratio, like, people just love talking about, like, yo, dude, I have like 9,000 games won and like 500 losses. But it's like, okay, if you think about that over the span of time when the game first came out versus, you know, now, You know, how's the player base looking online, etc., etc. There's so many questions that come into play, right? When offline is really what matters the most. I understand in these troubling times here with COVID, it's very difficult for us to have that offline experience, but even then, like, it still like remains, like, it should not matter about that. Like, that win-loss ratio means nothing. Even though we have ourselves some online tournaments, those are the places to test yourself, you know, and see all your limit testing, all the breaking of your fear of failure, seeing how that comes into play. Coffee. Hitting the spot. But yeah, so, and I'm not saying you need to go balls to the wall, you know, just guns blazing, and we're getting in there, we're pressing all the buttons. Nah, still be tactical about it. Still approach this stuff with tact. That doesn't mean change up your game plan entirely. It just means do not be afraid. Just do not be afraid to lose in casuals. Losing in casuals is okay. I'm gonna keep, before this video's over, I'm gonna probably say this at least 900 times, right? But just do not be afraid. It is the single most important thing I feel in terms of being a good player, because you get players really briefly like Daigo who just will uppercut you on your wake up, like left and right with Ryu, and just not care. And it's not because he's trolling or anything of that nature. He just is just that confident in his decision making that you're gonna press a button, and if he lands that, you know, that uppercut, you're gonna take a lot of damage. You know, if he guesses wrong and you block it, obviously he gets to die for it, but he's also comfortable with those decisions, right? So it also comes back to that too, being comfortable in your decision making. Like, it's such a big important thing. So I can go on and on about this, but again, at the end of the day, just to really wrap this up, I said that like twice already, right? But limit test yourself. Do not be afraid to lose. Casuals are there to help you make yourself a better player, help you make better decisions, help you learn your matchups, help you improve at the things that you're weak at, so that when it comes time to play a tournament, or let's say you're playing an exhibition set, you know, you're confident, you're ready to go, you have everything you need, and you still carry that same mentality of, you know, no fear of failure. It doesn't matter, even if you play in an exhibition, it doesn't matter if you lose, right? It's about what you can take away from that point at that stage, right? And bring it back, you know? But all this stems to making you a better player. And again, I'm going to keep putting out these think pieces for you guys so that, you know, I want you guys to become better players at all times. Doesn't matter what game, doesn't matter what fighting game, Guilty Gear, Skullgirls, KI, Street Fighter, like, it doesn't matter. Tekken, DOA, it makes no difference to me. All this is relevant towards whatever fighting game and whatever competitive game you're playing. So for me, this works for Apex and Guilty Gear and any other fighting game that I've ever played. So this should stem for you guys too in the same fashion. Yeah, let me just stop stumbling and rambling here. I think this is pretty much about it. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. A lot of you guys watch the videos, and I say this every time, and I say this organically every time, so you guys know this isn't just a copy pasta of me talking about subscribe to the channel. I really want you guys to subscribe to the channel because it helps me grow. It helps this channel grow. You know, I want to keep putting out think pieces like this. You know, I enjoy doing stuff like this because I want you guys to just take anything and everything that you can from me and learn and run with it and make your own, you know, decisions, so you can learn from me, etc., etc. But again, hit the notification bell and stay up to date with anything and everything happening on this channel. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here with this coffee with Kensou, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Play more Guilty Gear. I don't care which one it is. Guilty Gear Petite, Guilty Gear Mesquite. It's not even a real Guilty Gear. But you know what I'm saying. Go play more Guilty Gear, all right? And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.